Hi, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to round out our discussion of eukaryotic microbes by talking about helminths, which are parasitic worms that infect humans and many other animals. Although bacteria and viruses often get most of the attention in microbiology, parasitic worms remain some of the most widespread human pathogens on Earth. Some infect the digestive tract, others invade tissues or blood vessels, and many have surprisingly complex life cycles. As we go through this lecture, pay attention to how these organisms are adapted for survival inside hosts and how their structures relates to transmission. By the end of this module, you should be able to compare major groups of parasitic helminths and explain how helminths survive and spread through hosts. Helminths are multicellular parasitic worms and are eukaryotic organisms. Many infect the digestive tract, although some infect tissues, blood vessels, or other organs. Unlike bacteria, helminths are large, complex organisms with specialized tissues and organ systems. One important feature of many helminths is their complex life cycles. Some require multiple hosts or developmental stages before reaching adulthood. As you look at the images throughout, notice the variety in size and anatomy of these organisms compared to the microscopic microbes we discussed previously. Helminths infect enormous numbers of people worldwide, especially in regions with limited sanitation or contaminated water supplies. The graph on this slide shows that some helminth infections have historically affected hundreds of millions or even over a billion people globally, although those numbers have began to decline. Ascaris hookworms and whipworms are among the most common. These infections can contribute to malnutrition, developmental problems, and chronic disease. Helminths also interact strongly with the immune system, which we'll discuss later in this lecture. Parasitic worms possess many adaptations that help them survive inside hosts. Some have resistant outer coverings that protect them from digestion. Others have hooks, suckers, or attachment structures that help them remain anchored inside the host. Many also produce enormous numbers of eggs or larvae to improve transmission success. As you examine the images, notice the specialized attachment structures and the different egg forms that aid identification and survival. The major parasitic helminths are divided into three broad groups. Nematodes are roundworms, cestodes are tapeworms, and trematodes are flukes. Each group has distinct body structures that relate to how they survive and reproduce. This slide provides a useful visual comparison. This slide provides, these upcoming slides provide useful visual comparisons. And so let's take a look at those. Nematodes are cylindrical, unsegmented worms with complete digestive systems. Many species live in the intestines and spread through contaminated soil, water, or food. Examples include pinworms, hookworms, whipworms, and ascaris. When you look at the image here, you can see they have these elongated cylindrical bodies. These are typical of roundworms. Nematodes are very common in plant parasitic infections of their roots as well. Hookworms have a particularly interesting transmission strategy. Their larvae develop in contaminated soil and can directly penetrate human skin, often through bare feet. After entering the body, the larvae migrate through the bloodstream to the lungs, are coughed up and swallowed, and eventually mature in the intestines. In the image of here, you can see hookworms on the skin, maybe on like a mucosa, probably. Tapeworms are flat, segmented worms that absorb nutrients directly through their body surface. They attach to the intestine using a structure called a scolex, which often contains hooks or suckers. Some tapeworms can grow several meters long inside the host. In these images, in the bottom right, you can notice that you have this long ribbon-like body that is going to end on a skull with the scolex on the head, which you can't see here very well. Flukes are flattened, leaf-shaped worms with complex life cycles as well that often involve aquatic environments and intermediate hosts, such as snails. Different flukes infect different organs, including the liver, intestines, lungs, or blood vessels. Schistosoma, shown in many microbiology texts, is one of the most medically important flukes worldwide. As you examine the image, notice the flattened body shape that distinguishes flukes from roundworms and tapeworms. Many helminths have remarkably complicated life cycles involving multiple developmental stages and sometimes multiple hosts. Different stages are specialized for transmission, environmental survival, or reproduction. These complex cycles improve dispersal and survival, but also make disease control challenging. The diagram on this slide illustrates how parasites may move between water, soil, snails, and fish and humans during transmission. Helminths interact with the immune system in unusual and complex ways. Some parasitic worms suppress inflammatory immune responses, which may help them survive for long periods inside hosts. Researchers have also observed that helminth infections may sometimes reduce certain autoimmune or allergic responses. However, these relationships are complicated and remain an active area of research. The hygiene hypothesis proposes that reduced exposure to parasites and microorganisms in very clean environments may influence immune system development. Some scientists think that decreased parasite exposure could contribute to increased allergies or autoimmune diseases in industrial societies. However, this does not mean parasitic infections are beneficial overall, helminths still cause major disease burdens worldwide. The graph on this slide, however, compares parasite prevalence across historical periods and illustrates how infection patterns have changed over time. With Ascaris in particular, it appears that infection rates have decreased since industrialization. Today, we examine the major groups of parasitic helminths and the adaptations that allow them to survive and spread through hosts. We compared nematodes, cestodes, and trematodes, explored their transmission strategies, and discussed how helminths interact with the immune system. Finally, we discussed the hygiene hypothesis and the complex relationship between parasites and human health. With that, I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thanks for attending, and see you next time.